I just think it's really interesting when you decide that you're going to make a choice on what you're going to do, and you're 100% set on your choice that this is what I'm going to do. This is the outcome that I want. It's just a matter of time for everything to catch up with you. Like your income, the people that want to surround yourself around you, it's all going to happen in the right timing. And you just realize that a lot of things are just going through the process of what you need to go through. Sometimes you just need to wait, and you don't feel like waiting is the place that you need to be at because you want to be in that next chapter, or you want to be in that next spot of I want this and I want that and I want this. But if the universe is not going to give you that stuff, and you need to sit and lie in the situation and realize that everything's going to happen. Maybe it's not going to happen the way I want it to right away, but it's just a matter of time that you know the outcome is going to be different because you've decided that the outcome's going to be different because I want to make different choices. I want to be a different person than who I was in the past. And some people might not understand your lifestyle. They might not understand your rationale of why you want the certain things that you want. But if you go back and you look at your experiences, your previous experiences, they will motivate you to do things. Like if you want a big family because the family that you went to, the family that you grew up in was not the dynamic that you wanted, and you want a different dynamic because you're gonna master that dynamic of this is what I want, this is how I'm gonna get there, and this is the outcome that I want. I want to structure it, plan it to the best of my abilities, and there will be times where stuff won't go to plan, and that's okay because that's just life. You have to roll with the punches in life and realize that okay, certain situations I am completely out of control, and I can't control the situation. I can't control how somebody else drives on the freeway. I can't control how somebody reacts to what I say, if it's negative or positive. Like I can't, that's out of my control. But if I do the best I can with the situation that I'm in, then that's the outcome that it's going to be. And sometimes you just have to sit and wait and be like, okay, am I doing everything that I can? Am I doing everything that I know I can at the moment? Because there's a lot of stuff that's out of your control. And I think that's the learning lesson, is realizing that okay, if I can be calm in the chaos, if I can be calm and coherent in the chaos and realize that life is chaos, and if I can control that to the best of my abilities and sit in the chaos and realize that everything is going to work out. It might not work out exactly how I want it to work out in the beginning, but if I sit with it and realize that okay, the situation that I'm in, it's going to get better. It might not get easier, but it's going to get better because there's a lot of things that are happening behind the scenes that people don't see. That's changing. So sitting here and realizing that okay, so I don't have the income that I want, I don't have the relationship that I want, doesn't mean that I'm not motivated to get those things. Because if I get motivated to do those things, then it's all going to be different. Because even 6 months from now, or even a week from now, things will be different. And you go through situations and you make dumb decisions on things, and you're like, okay, so this is what I should do differently. But if I didn't do that situation the way I did it the first time, I wouldn't have the knowledge that I have today. I wouldn't have the experiences that I have today, even if they're good or bad or uncomfortable. Because you have to realize that part of your life is waiting. You're waiting for something, and you can figure out the situation. If you're waiting at a doctor's office line, you're waiting at the DMV, or you're waiting at the bank, or you're waiting to meet your partner, or you're waiting to get a promotion, or you're waiting to get off work to go home, or you're waiting to wake up to go to work. Like, whatever the situation is, there's a part of life where you're going to be waiting. And there's the unknown of not knowing exactly what to do in all situations. But if you have a mindset of whatever's going on, even if something traumatic happens to you, whatever's going on will motivate you or teach you what you need to learn. And if you just like deal with situations on a mindset of everything's going to work in my favor, even if it doesn't feel like that at the moment, then you just work through it, because you'll go through your day a lot easier. Like, if you're driving on the freeway and people decide to cut in front of you, it's going to happen because maybe they're in a hurry, or maybe they are out of control. Maybe there could be a million scenarios of why they did what they did. But if you drive a little slower than everybody else, people will get mad at you, they'll honk at you, they'll swerve at you, yada yada. But you will still get to your destination at the same time if you drive the speed limit or a little under the speed limit. And people are going to drive a certain way, and they're going to act a certain way. So if you can plan out to a point of, this is how I should react to this, and people will misunderstand you, they'll judge you, they'll condemn you, they'll shame you, they'll guilt you, they'll do all that stuff, and that's okay. And then they'll tattle on themselves and they'll say, oh, I like you, but, and then they'll say a story. And if you can realize that that's how people are, and you'll never be able to change them, and the right people will want to be with you no matter what you've done or what you're doing, they'll want to be with you, you'll have a lot easier life. It might not be the perfect life that you want, but that's a process, because you're in a process. You're in a situation of, this is my old self got me to this position, and the universe, God, source, whatever you believe in, is going to show you this is what you need to do, and this is how you need to do it, and you need to trust me. You need to trust me that I'm going to provide for you. I'm going to give you what you need. When something goes wrong, there's going to be a situation, or there's going to be a plan of, this is how I can make it better. Like, I can make it better because I am the ruler of the universe. And he tells you that, or she, whatever gender you want to put on the universe, will show you what you need to learn. And the situation that you've gone through in the past does not define who you are today. That's the past. Now you can realize that certain situations have gotten me where I am today. If I didn't go through all that suffering and pain or that trauma, then I wouldn't be the person that I am today. And there's times where your trauma is just like a bag of concrete on your back, and you just want it to go away. And if you don't learn the situation of why that bag of concrete is on your back, then it's just going to stay there. And you have to realize that, okay, so this is what happened to me as a child. It was unfair. It was not right. It was painful. It was irritating, like whatever word you want to put behind it is fine. But when you decide that that's not who I am anymore, this is who I am today, and yes, I do have issues because the programming that I had is not right or wrong, because I don't believe in that. It's you decide what to do, because everybody has a different experience. Everybody has a different rationale on stuff. And if you get to a point where maybe you justify what you do, maybe you don't justify what you do, maybe you can do the best you can do, and that's not enough, because I don't want to just be the bare minimum human. And I know in a lot of situations I just blatantly just suck as a human. But when you start admitting that, okay, I suck as a human sometimes, but I'm trying, not even trying, I'm working on thriving to the next level of where I was at. And I might make dumb decisions, I might make bad decisions, or situations that somebody probably would do it differently, but then they're not me. So they can't go through life the way I did, because they have different experiences. They have different trauma. They have different beliefs. So if you realize that, okay, this is what's going on, and this is how I'm going to make it different, and it's not even just for me, it's for my legacy. So when I am no longer on this planet, and my legacy is still living on in my children, my grandchildren, and my great-great-grandchildren, then it's worth it. Because you could instill something, a belief, into your kids, and then they'll pass that belief on to their kids. And I feel like that is more crucial than making billions of dollars, because you can make billions of dollars, you can lose billions of dollars, you can make it all over again. But if you have core, strong, ethical, moral beliefs in your children and your grandchildren and your great-grandchildren, that's everything. And that's what you got to realize, is there's a lot of problems in this world. And you can prevent them, or you can make them easier. It doesn't mean they're going to go away, but if you can get to a point of, this is what I've gone through, and I no longer want to be a victim mindset, but sometimes I fall into that category because of situations are out of my control. But if you kind of step back from that situation and be like, okay, so the situation that I'm in right now, I'm not a big fan of it, but soon I will go through it, because it's like a tunnel. I will go through that situation and it will be behind me, and then there's a point of what I need to learn. And if I realize that, okay, so this is what's going on, I'm not a big fan of it, but if I do everything that I need to do, then it will get better. It will get easier. And it's like, the easier aspect of it is you will grow in that situation of, it's easier because I know how to handle the pain, the misery, the suffering at a different level. And people like to say stories about how hard life is. Okay, life is hard no matter where you live. If you live in the United States, you live in China, you live in the Philippines, you live in Asia, you live anywhere, just think of anywhere you live in the world. Life is hard. Like, that's just bottom line. So if you can get past that concept of life is hard and start enjoying the hardness or the pain or the suffering of whatever the situation is, and you're like, okay, I don't like this situation, but if I don't motivate myself or push myself to a different standard, then I'll stay the same. And that's what you have to do, is you have to realize that I want a different life. Okay, and there's times where I'm just so tired, I don't want to do anything. And that's when you have to motivate yourself and say, hey, I want to do this, and it's do or die situation. And that's how you should do it, is it's a do or die situation, because if you don't change the situation, you can die with nothing changed. And if you can decide on this is what I want to do, it's a life and death situation concept, and you realize that I want to be the best I can be. So when I'm no longer here, my legacy will speak for itself. And there's going to be people that don't like you. There's going to be people that don't listen to what you say, and they're going to talk about you in front of your face in whatever language they speak. It doesn't really matter. But if you can decide on, it doesn't matter what people think of me. If at the end of the day I'm doing my standard of living, or I am doing my standard of this is how I want to treat somebody else. I want to treat somebody else like spoil them, love them, and cherish them. And if they can decide on they want to talk about you in whatever language they speak in, and they want to spread rumors about you, and they want to gossip about you, then let them. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what gets said behind your back, because if it's true or it's not true, it honestly doesn't really matter. Because if you move forward on what you're supposed to do, and you sit in the situation on this is my task for today, I'm going to do the task to the best of my abilities, even if you're exhausted, do the task to the best of your abilities, then you can go home with realizing that I'm tired, but I did the best I could do in that situation. And that's it. Like, nothing else matters. If you do the best in every situation, even if you're exhausted, and there's times where you go to work or you go out for dinner and you're just not in the mood. You don't want to be there, you don't want to be coherent, you don't want to associate with the situation that you're in. And if you can decide on this is what I want to do, and this is the structure on how I'm going to overcome it, then it really doesn't matter how you get there, because it's all going to work. And you might not know exactly how to do A, B, C, but honestly, that doesn't really matter. If you just show up, suit up, and trust the environment or the situation or the outcome of what's going on, it honestly doesn't really matter what you're doing. If you work for yourself or you work for somebody else, if you decide that I'm going to do my best, and it's going to be different than it was before because I know things differently and I've gone through things differently, then you can't look at any situation as a negative situation, because the right situations will stay, the wrong situations will just flutter away. And it's just like you realizing that you want to be with somebody, or you want to be with multiple people, or whatever your relationship status is that you want, it's going to work out because you're going to do every day to do that. And when you're ready for that situation to play out, the right people will show up and say, hey, we want to follow you, we want to work with you, we want to give you what you want. Because at the end of the day, it's mutual on this is what we want, this is what we expect, and then it's going to play out. And the right people will say, hey, I support you 1,000%, 1,000,000%, because at the end of the day, the goal is the same. They want to achieve the same thing of they want the legacy as much as you want the legacy. And I think a lot of people get caught up in they want to make $1,000,000. They want to have a big family. But if they don't do that where it's structured the way they want it to, then it doesn't really work. And then they wonder why it didn't happen the way they want it to. But if you get to a point where you write out the legacy of this is what I want to achieve, this is the situation that I want to master, this is the circumstances that I want to master. And that's broad, when you say I want to master circumstances, because there's so many different aspects of a situation or a circumstance, and you might not always know you're doing the right thing. But if you trust to the best of your abilities and you show up and you say, universe, God, Jesus, source, Muhammad, whoever you believe in, can you show this to me the way I need to be shown and teach me the way I need to be taught in this situation? And then everything will work out. And you'll get to where you want to be. You will decide on, this is what I'm willing to do within reason, of course. And it's going to work, because you're going to say, hey, show me what I need to do. Because there's so much misteaching out there that people want to do it their way. And if that's what you want, that's fine. But so many people want to tell you, hey, you should do it this way. And I'm like, okay. But if they're not showing you the outcome of what you want, then why would you listen to them? And that's the whole idea of, if you're at the bottom, you can only work your way up. But like, I just listened to somebody was talking about how he was happy that he was broke. So when he made the money that he made, it had a different perspective on it, because he came from zero and now he has whatever the dollar amount that he wants. And it's not even just the dollar amount. He has the peace of mind. He has the um, no worries. The stress is all managed because he know what it's like to have zero. And then he works his way up to, this is what's possible. And if I can over achieve that, where I am completely not where I want to be at the moment, and realizing, okay, I am at the bottom. I am at the bottom. You can't go any lower than this. I guess if you're dead, but you know what I mean. So if you're at the bottom of the spectrum and you want to move up to the next spectrum, and you're like, okay, so I really want to do this, but I don't know how to structure it. But you realize that other people have done it and they're making that dollar amount that makes them happy. And it's not even just the happiness. They are so happy to wake up in the morning. Even if they're having a bad day, they're still happy to wake up in the morning, because they decided that this is the income that I make. This is where I achieved this goal of, this is what I want. I got there. And that's what it's all about, is achieving something that you don't think is possible because somebody told you long ago that I can't achieve this because my mommy told me that. Okay, so your mommy told you you can't make $1 million. Good for your mommy. It's obviously your mom believes that. You don't need to believe that, because that's her belief system. So if you restructure your belief system and say, yes, I can make $1 million. It might take me yada, 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 yada years to make it. And then when you achieve it and you're like, hey, I make this much money, I'm living the life that I want to live, I have the people surrounded around me that I like, and I'm living that dynamic of, I'm happy, I'm satisfied with the outcome, and I can do situations a lot easier than before. And if you realize that this is what's going on, and you can say, hey, anything is possible, I can achieve this, and you let your limited beliefs go away, and you realize that we live in an abundant world, and the world we live in, anything is possible. It's just a lot of people say, oh, it's so hard. And it's like, okay, so that story was told to you when you were 2 years old, and you're 20 something now, and you don't need to believe that anymore, because that story is outdated, expired, and it's rotten now. So why would you want to keep going over this rotten story over and over and over and over again? And that's where people get stuck, is they say, this is hard. Okay. They when you come out of the womb, there should be like a flyer that says, your life's gonna be hard. So how are you gonna accept it? How are you gonna grow in that situation? Like, it should be, welcome to planet Earth. Life is hard. Get over it. Being a child is hard. Being an adult is hard. Being a citizen of whatever country you are is hard. And you go to a different country, it's not going to be that much different. Because you have to change this. The problem you have is in here. Realizing that life is hard. Get over it. If you're a millionaire, life is still hard. If you're poor, life is still hard. And you realizing that, okay, life is hard. How can I structure it to work in my favor? Even if there's times where I'm in situations where I don't have the things that I want, I'm not where I want to be, but you have to trust that this is the process. I'm going to go through this process and it's going to work. Because when I get to that point, if I become monetized on YouTube, or I become monetized on TikTok, or whatever the situation is, or I become a motivational speaker, or I become a well-known businessman, whatever the situation is, it kind of doesn't really matter, because you arrived in that self-awareness of, I'm okay with what's going on, even if blah 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 happens, even if somebody takes all my shoes away, or somebody takes all my money away. I can deal with that situation of, this is how I can live. And yes, I'm living the way that I want to, but when I get to where I want to go and I get through the situation that is in front of me and structure it in a way that this is what I want to do and this is the income that I want to make, and when I master that skill, it honestly doesn't matter where I live. It doesn't matter what I drive. It doesn't matter who's with me. It's your happiness. And happiness is a very temporary situation, because life is temporary. And when you realize that anything is possible, you just have to do it in a way that builds you up, makes you better, makes you move on to the situation that you're in. And that's all that matters. Because you master the situation that you're in, you're okay with whatever goes on. You're okay with, sitting in a parking lot waiting to go to an appointment. You're willing to realize that, okay, I only worked a half day today, and I know that everything is going to be provided for me. And that's the situation that you're in, is realizing that, okay, this is what's going on, and I'm not 100% okay with it. And there's times where I'm just blatantly angry because of certain things. But if I realize that this is what's going on and this is why it's going on, then it really doesn't matter what's going on. Because you'll get to that point where you're okay with the misery. You're going to master the situation of, this is painful. And if I'm okay with the pain, and I'm okay with the situation of the growth that I'm in, and it's gonna work, and I'm okay with it majority of the time, then it honestly doesn't really matter. And then when you master that mindset of, it does not matter what's going on, and I'm okay with that mindset of what's going on and the situation of what's going on, where you're like, okay, I'm similarly at peace with what's going on. Now, there's always going to be a point of discomfort, but the discomfort of a situation is realizing that this is what's going on and this is how I need to make the outcome differently, and coming to a point of this is what I need to go through, and this is why I need to go through that situation, then it's going to be a piece of cake.